All right, it's finally time to weigh into this big debate that's been happening online. Should progressive congresspeople like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ro Khanna, and others leverage their votes in the upcoming House Speaker election that Nancy Pelosi is expected to win, and she's being unchallenged by anybody else in the Democratic Party? Should these progressive congresspeople leverage their votes for her as a way to force a floor vote on Medicare-For-All? Now, this is an idea that's been popularized recently by Jimmy Dore, and for me, the short answer is yes. But there's a longer answer that I want to get into. First, though, look, in theory, this would publicize which Democrats don't actually back universal health care in the middle of a pandemic, and because of that, would help with pushing for primary challenges of those Democrats that don't back Medicare for all in the future. Now, there is some potential downsides to the strategy as well, as I'll get into. But before I even address any of this, some people are losing their minds on both sides of this debate by attacking anyone that doesn't agree with their position as being a bad actor, a sellout, or a fraud. Disagreements over strategy are perfectly normal. To claim that someone who doesn't agree with you on strategy means they don't agree with that policy or vice versa, it's first of all, it's not only wrong, it's a horrible strategy if you're trying to win those people over to your side. So let's all just have cooler heads here. I know a lot of people watching this video have no idea what I'm talking about. They're not in this debate. They're not on Twitter. But there is a lot of viciousness going around, and there's no real need for it if we're just talking about the actual strategy of it. Now, of course, yes, you can go into motivations and why people are talking about this. That's a whole other discussion. I have no interest in that. It's all a bunch of drama. Let's focus on the actual strategy. Will the strategy work? Now, using this strategy of forcing a floor vote on Medicare for all in order to get these votes, in order to get Nancy Pelosi these votes, we know that it's largely a political stunt. We know that Medicare for all would not pass. That isn't the point of forcing this floor vote. The point is, it would be a useful organizing tool as a way to publicize who doesn't back Medicare for all. Now, there's some argument about, well, you can already see who does and doesn't co-sponsor the Medicare for all bill and decide from there. But as other people have discussed, there are co-sponsors on the Medicare for all bill, at least when it comes to the Bernie Sanders bill in the Senate, that don't support Medicare for all, like Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a co-sponsor of Bernie's Medicare for all bill in the Senate, and she does not back Medicare for all. Same with basically everybody else that is a co-sponsor on that bill. They do not actually back Medicare for all. So by forcing a floor vote, you force these people in the House, with the House bill, you force them to show what side they are on. And because it is the middle of a pandemic, it is the best time to force this floor vote. Now, I would argue, I know, the race for House Speaker is happening now, but if this vote were able to be forced, several months ago, I think it would have been even more effective in the sense that we are now getting close to the vaccine being widely available, at least over the next 6 months or so. So because of that, a lot of people may feel less of an urgency to support Medicare for all or to be even in this debate because they see the vaccine as kind of, the solution to everything, when of course we all know there was an issue with healthcare even way before the pandemic, but the pandemic just exacerbated the issue. Regardless, still, we're in a pandemic. Now would be the perfect time to get lawmakers on the record as to whether they support universal healthcare or not during a pandemic. Now, the potential downsides, and I'm going to get into some links I want to share as well, potential downsides here, since it will fail, the vote on Medicare for all is not going to pass. Conservative Democrats like Pelosi and just like the media, they could use the vote to say, hey, look, we tried Medicare for all. It failed. Let's move on. We absolutely know, at the very least, that's what Nancy Pelosi would do in that scenario. The vote's going to fail. She'll say, oh, look, we tried Medicare for all. Let's end that discussion. The discussion's over. It failed. Moving on. Let's look at other options. So there is that potential downside. But of course, when you're fighting conservative Democrats like this, there's always going to be that downside. So you have to be willing to take risks, because clearly the strategy so far has not resulted in any substantial change. At the same time, though, you can say there's been actual progress because you have seen progressive members of Congress, primary important members of the Congress. You just saw, Jamal Bowman taking out an important member, Elliot Engel in Congress, Cori Bush taking out Lacey Clay. Of course, AOC took out, now I'm forgetting his name, but it's a good thing I forget his name. But basically, these progressive lawmakers have already taken out important people in Congress, cementing their position as people to be listened to. And AOC and the squad essentially have used their powers so far to at least change the public conversation around many of these issues. Because as there are only, a minority of them, there's only so much power they actually have. So as they continue to grow, now with the additions of Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, and others, they're going to continue to grow, and conservative Democrats that are in the House will continue losing their seats, losing their primary challenges, or losing their primary races to people that are challenging them from the left. So that is a thing that is happening. There is progress being made, and you can't expect change to happen all at once. That's not how it works. At the same time, I think it's perfectly fine to try a different strategy, and this is one of those strategies. Force a floor vote on Medicare-For-All by being willing to withhold your vote for Nancy Pelosi. Now, before I say anything else, I want to show you, just giving you full context here, because Mitch McConnell has actually tried this strategy himself to try and split the Democrats. So back in 2019, GOP eyes Medicare-For-All vote to highlight Democratic splits. So Mitch McConnell tried to force a floor vote in the Senate on Medicare-For-All as a way to divide the Democratic Party. I'm just putting this out there because this is a strategy that's been used by the right to attempt to split the party. Now, at the same time, we know the split already exists. So again, this is more about getting Democratic lawmakers on the record of, do you actually support healthcare during a pandemic or not? But at the same time, just keep in mind, this has been attempted before by the right. Now, also, I'm not going to get too deep into Medicare-For-All and the benefits in this video because I've discussed this a million times. As a Canadian, I have healthcare. I understand that a single-payer healthcare system would be incredibly beneficial to Americans. Also understanding, as a Canadian, there are serious gaps in our system because our system does not go far enough. Pharmacare is not universal. Dental care, not universal. So there are gaps in our system that actually Medicare-For-All, Bernie's Medicare-For-All bill, would cover. But apart from the benefits of Medicare-For-All, which you can watch any other video I've done on healthcare to get those benefits, polling supports Medicare-For-All, adding to why this would be a good strategy. Because when you actually poll people, and this is one poll, but you can look at any recent poll, very similar numbers, 69% of Americans want Medicare-For-All, including 46% of Republicans. So this would be able to, this forcing a vote on Medicare-For-All would be able to publicize where lawmakers stand on the issue, knowing full well that the American people are on the side of Medicare-For-All, and it's only grown during the pandemic. This was back in April. I imagine the numbers have only increased as more and more people have gotten COVID, are going to have pre-existing conditions for the future when it comes to private insurance. So Medicare-For-All would be able to alleviate all of that and guarantee you health care no matter what. Now, this is where I want to get to why a floor vote is not enough. David Sirota has a great piece here. This is the Daily Poster. I'll link to this below the video. I'm not going to, read from this exactly. I think you should read the piece, get his perspective on this. I will link to it below. But his headline here, here's what Medicare-For-All supporters in Congress can actually do. Progressives in the U.S. House have the leverage to make demands for both performative gestures and for substantive change. Will they? So David Sirota actually goes into why he thinks a floor vote on Medicare-For-All isn't enough. He thinks it's simply performative. He, to be honest, I think he downplays the benefits of a floor vote more than I would. I see that, I think there would be more of I think performative gestures have a place because they help change the conversation. Now, of course, that also depends on the media actually covering them. The media often doesn't cover votes that fail. They have no reason to. But if the progressive Democrats that would vote for it are, going to the media to discuss this, then it's going to become more of an issue. So it really relies on their ability, on the squad's ability and others that back Medicare for All to be able to push the media to actually cover this. But he goes on here. I mean, again, I'm not going to read through all this, but I'll mention the key points he makes here. So one, he says here, remove the Medicare for All opponent who chairs the key committee. So he's talking about Richard Neal here. So Richard Neal takes a ton of money from the healthcare industry, and he is the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. So he is one of the key people here that you need to get out of the way if you ever hope to pass Medicare for All. So having this as part of the strategy for a vote for Nancy Pelosi, I think would not only be, it wouldn't be performative, but it would be something that could potentially lead to actual real change. So that's one of his points. Another one here. Schedule a vote on existing legislation to let states create single-payer healthcare systems. Now, I don't know if this is really, I understand, he's just floating ideas here. I think they should really push for Medicare for All nationwide. Having states create their own systems just kind of, it complicates things, and ultimately I think would potentially make it tougher in the future to actually pass Medicare for All, especially if some of these systems fail because they don't have the national infrastructure in place. So I don't agree with this, but I understand, he's just floating ideas here. Another one, schedule a vote on a resolution demanding Biden use executive authority to expand Medicare. This seems to be a no-brainer. Biden has the ability to expand Medicare during a pandemic. And reading this, because I wasn't aware of this, but reading this, it just makes me think, good God, if Bernie Sanders won the primary, if he was president, or he was going to become president, he would do this. He would be able to, through executive order, essentially put in place a Medicare for All system. But we got Joe Biden. But this, of course, would be a fantastic thing to push for. Another one here, include provisions in year-end spending bills that create presidential commission charged with crafting a Medicare for All program. So this is something that, normally happens through Congress when they actually want to pursue something. I think he mentions here how Obama created a commission to cut Social Security. So maybe creating one to actually do something good, like Medicare for All, would be an idea here to push through that strategy. Another one here, author a discharge petition to force a vote on Medicare for All. So this one seems similar to just forcing a vote on Medicare for All, but basically this, I think there's more that you can do than just force a floor vote on Medicare for All. And David Sirota here lays out the case for that. So again, I'll link to this below the video. I think he has made the best case so far out of anybody when it comes to this debate. So read through his piece. But ultimately, yes, I support pushing progressive members of Congress to force a floor vote on Medicare for All, but I also support them pushing these other things that get some potential real substantive change in the future.